Fear not, denizens, Parade is here, aka the bringer of rain, aka father of the sea and sun, aka king of the core. And today we have a very special review. It's not so special. It's just Acolyte episode 6. And I have none other than my wonderful co-host, Twitch streamer, Uncle Sheev, Twitch streamer, The Fan Awakens, on Instagram as well. The prince that was promised, Eli. How are you?
I'm doing great. That was a fun intro. The prince that was promised. I don't know how I feel about that at the moment, but I think I'm willing to roll with it. I'm happy to be here. Teach Corrupt. This was an episode. It was one of the episode 6s of TV. That's about my intro for it.
Yeah. I really hope you guys are enjoying our review. I had a great time recording last week's episode. We've been putting out a little bit of shorts just to have a laugh. And for you dissenters who have disliked it, bad on you, because we are just having fun where we cannot find any in these episodes. Before we begin our review of episode 6, we're going to do some housekeeping. Again, follow Eli. His links are in the description. Raincore on Instagram. I'm posting shorts. And raincoreclothing.com. I want to show off some shirts. I usually show off the shirt I'm wearing, so I'll just show a copy of that shirt. Summer is here, guys, and we're burning up. So you can pick up a Raincore logo shirt, beach style. They got tanks too, but I don't wear tanks. And they also have Lorcana shirts. If you guys enjoy Lorcana, you can find your deck and your colors, your inks here, if it would just show. But they're on the website.
You know, I gotta say, I have a couple Raincore shirts now, right? Mm-hmm. I wear them a ton. I wash them a ton. And I pretty much wear Star Wars shirts for the most part. This is a shirt I got from Celebration, and I love it. But, like, it faded really fast. And I have not had that happen with my Raincore shirts. So, you know what I'm saying? If you want longevity, you want a go-to tee, get a Raincore clothing.
Yeah, please do. It helps support the channel. And reviews like these also help. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Shout out to all the people who commented last week. It was a lot of fun getting your feedback and feeling despaired together and going through this trauma together. And we are enduring for 1 more week, 2 more weeks to go. Eli.
Yeah.
Tell me how you felt about this episode. Please search your feelings.
This episode is exactly what I thought it would be.
You called it. You're like, a lot of dialogue.
Last week, we had an action-heavy episode. It was the big one, as they called it, right? I don't know if they used those words, but it was the big episode.
They said crazy.
Lots of action, lightsaber dueling. It was awesome. Cool action. Yeah. And I was like, okay, we got that episode in 5. The next episode is going to be just dialogue-heavy, which is, I think, the biggest weakness of this show. And it was. And it continued to be a weakness. So I'm not super high on the episode. But it's pretty much back to, we had like episode 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and I'm like 5 was like, it's like this right there. Yeah. And it's like we're back to 6.
Back to Earth.
We're back to Earth. We're back to what brought us here. You know?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's not the strength. I think you mentioned it's not the strength of the show, the dialogue or the writing. There was probably a little bit better dialogue than that we've had in the past, but for me, I was disinterested. The action is what I'm here for, and when we don't have it, these really stick out. The conversations and the moment-to-moment things that they're trying to do to try to build tension, to try to build character, it just falls flat because these characters have little to no motivation or clarity to who they are, and I just don't care that much.
Yeah, I feel like, they don't have that strong foundation to stand on to have this dialogue-heavy episode. Yeah. Because what happened before is all over the place, right? So it's not like you have something. It's like you're standing on quicksand in a way. Because even though you're trying to have these conversations to build these characters, they've contradicted themselves a million times at this point. So It's hard to really take anything they're doing or saying at any sort of face value. But our episode does go a few places, right?
Sure.
I don't know if you want to kind of kick off from the beginning of this.
Yeah, and before I start, I did want to shout out the choreographers, the is it called second director, and that team who did all the choreography for Manny Jacinto and the fight scenes. Christopher Clark Cohen, he did Shang-Chi. He's done Fighting for the Witcher. Mark Ginther has been in the Kingsman franchise, and also credited for I made an acronym and I don't know, it was last week when I took it. And Darren Knopp was also credited, and he's done Moon Knight and John Wick 4. So a lot of guys who's done great choreography. I want to shout out to them. I posted the story that I appreciated Christopher Clark. He reposted that. Very nice of him. He didn't have to, but I wanted to make sure that they got their props, because to me that's one of the reasons why this show is good. But it's I don't think anyone feels strongly enough to be like, this show is good, or, we'll go back to this whole show to watch just for those scenes. Maybe just watch the clips on YouTube at this point.
That's an excellent track record. That's an excellent track record. Good on him. I didn't see that he reposted it though. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But it's just nice that he probably doesn't get as I can't talk, enough shine.
Yeah,
as he should.
For sure. I mean, like, I don't even hear even in the reviews or the things I've watched, people go, "Oh, the choreography is great," but they never say who. So I wanted to make sure here, that we're shouting them out. So give them some love if you can. I just want to make sure that the people who are doing a great job in Star Wars get their due diligence. But this episode, I believe it starts out with Osha waking up again vertically and then horizontally. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't understand. It doesn't bring anything to the shot or to the scene. It's a choice.
Yeah, I agree. It's, she wakes up though in a cave with her wounds tended to. And
okay, so I remember how I said last week, she had a wound. There was a force heal. I've watched the scene many times, and there's like a sound effect. But even though he's doing a force heal, she still has a bandage on. I'm like, what?
Hey, I mean, maybe he didn't want it. Like, he's like, I don't want to, like, my arm to hurt, so I'm just gonna heal a little bit. So I don't get an infection. He's like, let's just not get infected, but I'm not giving you all that. I'm not giving you all that.
Right. She finds some clothes and the little elephant bird thing that they haven't named.
Very episode 8 Octu-esque.
Yeah, like they do a pan out shot and you're like, whoa, we're on this island, and I'm watching it and I'm like, this looks like Octu. I wonder if it's Octu. And then they're just like, boom, unknown planet.
I know. I was like, same. I was like, this looks exactly like Octu. It's presented like Octu, and even those little funny little freaks, the little anteater bird
they
things,
look like the sirens.
They are very episode 8-esque, right?
Yeah, they look like the sirens. If you guys don't know, those ones that Luke milked and drink.
That green milk.
The green milk.
It was. I was like, are we in that little weird Sith cave? What are we doing here?
And what's funny is, what does it matter if we don't know what the planet is or not? Like, who cares? Like, to me, the show goes, oh, let's add another mystery in it. And I'm like, I'm good on mystery. Please, no more mystery. I don't know, no more mystery to my meal, please. Thank you.
I agree. We already have 5 dishes and we still don't know what they are.
I'm already dealing with what you presented last time. But yeah, so and I don't know if does it cut to another part of the story? Does it cut back to Sol and May? Yeah,
so from there it goes to Sol calling in an emergency, telling that his team is dead. Everyone's dead.
Everyone's dead, right? But now he just doesn't have any bars out here in space for some reason.
Yeah, he loses connection. He's got less than stellar mobile service. He's on the hotspot and it's running out, and they drop the call. And goody two shoes Jedi on the other end. He doesn't get the full message, but that's pretty much it. And then, May walks in. She's walking through the ship. She's reminiscing because it's the same ship from 15 years ago or whatever. And she's playing back being in there and being tested.
Yeah. She pulls out a knife, right, and just tries to sneak up on him.
Yep, she pulls out the knife, sneaks up on him. He doesn't sense it, of course, because he's simultaneously the most awesome and the most dull Jedi I've ever seen. And he's like, hey, I need to go reset something. You take the wheel. And she's like, oops.
She's like, okay. Yeah, he's like, and we're wondering, like, does he know? And he's like, Osha. Like, he says Osha, so he doesn't know. And then they're just, like, not looking each other in the face, too, right?
Also convenient that I feel like the entire show, and this is a nitpick, I'm not going to gripe over it too much. I feel like the whole show they made sure we can see that she has the tattoo, and in this episode it's like
it's so covered. Like, yeah, it's so hard to see.
Hey, I get it. Maybe she did that on purpose. I don't think that's that far fetched, to be honest. Like, hey, I know he's going to see my tattoo, so let me make sure my hair is, all to this side. So that doesn't bother me.
Yeah,
but that's the least of the issues.
I think here we also see Basil sniffing around.
Yeah, Basil's sniffing around, being that little Build-A-Bear tracker.
And then they have like the fun like Ewok music, and he's all boop 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 trying to like charge the Pip.
Oh, droid. He finds Pip.
Yeah, he has Pip in his hand, and he's trying to like find the right USB port.
We've all been there.
So relatable, this Basil character.
That Basil,
what a scamp! What a scamp! What do we cut to at this point?
We go to Osha following the trail and finding Qimir taking a little rub-a-dub-dub bath. Finds him, catches him with his pants down, just floating in the tide pool.
This is a thirst trap if I've ever seen one. I'm like, dude, he knows that she's following. I'm pretty sure everyone knows that he knows she's there. So he goes in and it's okay. One good thing, I really like this area that they're in. It's very cool. Like, I'm like, oh, I'd vacation there. Like water in the ocean. It looks like a cool place to shoot at.
I agree.
But Osha decides to grab his lightsaber and hold it.
Yeah.
And he's like, doesn't that feel good to hold the lightsaber for the first time?
He's giving a little tips. He's like, raise your elbow a
little bit. I'll teach you something.
Helps. Yeah. This is where my biggest issue with this episode comes. It's just that for most of this episode, it feels like May and Qimir are just hanging out. Just like, I mean, it's odd. It feels sort of like Rey following Luke around, but Luke in this case would have just killed every person she knows and cares about, basically. Yeah. And it's an interesting. It did feel parallel to episode 8 in a way, which I don't know if that's what they're going for. It seems like it because of the setting, because of the creatures. And it feels literally like Rey following Luke around and asking all these questions. It's just different because he already killed all these people, and Rey's trying to bring Luke back so they don't die.
Yeah.
So that was something that I sort of, I don't know if that was a cognitive thing they did or not, but it feels like it.
I read an interview where Leslie Henlin says she likes the seduction part of the description of going to the dark side. So I felt like that's what this was, given how she talked about it in the interview. And in the past, I wasn't sure how the show felt young adult, but this to me felt the most young adult. It's like, oh, we have, hot guy, big arms, big shoulders and back and stuff.
He's in the contract.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm working out. I got to show it, man.
Shout out to him, man. Once. If I would kill to have a body like that, right?
You got ripped.
But even the lines like, well, if you're not going to join me, like, can I put my clothes back on? And then she does like a up and down glance at him. So I was like, are they going to kiss somewhere in this episode? Like, that's where my mind was going, because they got real close and, they're all grabbing on each other and touching on each other later. But, yeah, it was just the conversation, and he's like, "You're the one with the weapon," and what's crazy is, and we're gonna get to it, he like murdered your friends, and she mentions it, and she's still just like cool, just chilling with the murderer.
I believe I have the quote here. It's later in the episode, but she says, "You killed my friends. I killed Jedi." Like, okay, that's cool.
Oh, okay.
It's a good one.
Oh,
and I killed those who threaten my existence, which basically goes back to what he was telling Soul.
Right.
And she's like, you killed Yord, you killed Jecki. And he's just like, well, I mean, they're just bad. Why are you even friends with them? It's one-sided.
Yeah, he goes,
like,
they can't go as deep as you. I was like, wow, that's
why do you love people who can't go as deep as you? Yeah. I'm like, okay, you killed them.
No, I was like, this doesn't break the fact that you murdered a bunch of people in front of me. But you're cool, I guess.
Like, we just got a little argument. Like, oh my gosh, drama.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
So I'm like, what is going on here? Yeah, because even there's the part where he's like, he goes, you can take my ship, or like you can swim if you can swim, or when the tide goes down. And I'm like, bro, she's not gonna take your ship, because you already know.
Also, though, that scene is my. I know I nitpicked earlier. I'm nitpick again real quick.
I think this whole episode's gonna be nitpicking.
If you want to start, if you want to make it to the ship, you better start now before the sun gets down. It's like 20 yards. It's like 20 yards from the tail of that island to the. I mean, I could probably skip a rock.
Right.
I'm like, wait, I get there's like a tide. You know what I mean? There's some waves. I'm not saying it's the easiest swim by any means.
Sure.
But I mean, you get a running start. Get a little, It's like, come on, man. I can almost taste the ship. I can smell it.
But plot says she needs to be here. Also, plot dictates that however knocked out she was, like she was knocked out after he picked her up and got her all the way back inside. You know.
What if he kept knocking her out?
He just get knocked.
Just like, oh.
Takes the end of his lightsaber and hits her on the head with it.
Just a little bonk.
Just a little bonk. Because that's still even, and that brings up the other thing I said about last week, where when Soul was knocked out and May wanted to kill Soul, she should have just killed him unconsciously there. Like, why 100%. Wait? Why switch places and kill him? It doesn't make any sense.
Odd. The other thing too is, like, this is going back a ways in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
I just found it a little odd, and it's just a nitpick again. I should stop saying it at this point.
Yeah.
We pick up with Osha and Qimir on this island, and Soul is still there. He's still on Kofar. They went right to the ship.
Right.
They're still there. They left before, if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're off on some other planet, and his Soul's like, no, we're just getting things booted up, which is fine.
And I have issues. There's an issue I have with it, but we'll talk about it later in the episode about Soul and his motivation in this episode. But they even cut into, we cut to the Order as well, right? And
we got Coruscant.
Master Vernestra talking to some senator, and I don't know if that has any importance. But then Padawan Mog, I was like, hey, it's Cal Kestis.
Padawan Mog. That guy.
He's like, he goes, hey, good on him though. He's like, hey, we got a distress signal. The entire team's dead. He says some other stuff about, like, we should probably go check it out. And she's like, I need to go with you. It's personal. And I'm like, all right, okay. And then they make a little thing about, and I know I'm jumping around, but I'm kind of like, I see all these arcs, if you just kind of watch them all together, it's kind of easier it's easier to talk about than kind of jumping around. But they make a reference to her getting sick on hyperspace travel.
Yeah.
So I did do some research about who she is and what that means, because I was like, that's a weird joke if it's a joke, because we laughed when I was like, who gets hyperspace sick? So I looked into Master Vernestra, and in the books, she becomes a Jedi Knight at 15, and she's given a Padawan who's the same age as her when I don't know what age, but so she's like kind of like special in that way. She's the same race as Bear Sophie, and
gotcha.
So the green skin and the tattoos, and they talked about when she flies through hyperspace, she would get visions, and I'm like, that's interesting. And I'm not sure exactly what that leads to in the books, but I'm wondering if she's getting visions of the future or something, and that's why they're like, oh, you must be getting sick on these hyperspace.
That's interesting.
Drives. So I just kind of was like curious about who she was as a character up until this point, because we could jump into theorizing, because we saw Qimir's back with slash marks, and he does say later in the episode that inferring my master gave it to me, and one person who has a whip is Vernestra, so I'm wondering if she was his former master and whipped him up. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I don't think that's that far-fetched necessarily. I think that it is cool to know that they did put a nod to something in a book in a show, because that doesn't happen very often, honestly.
Right.
And that feels like, okay, if you read the books, it's not the biggest thing in the world, but you're probably like, hey, I know what's going on here.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That was the only character I think they brought to the books.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, she's much younger, because this is like the tail end of the High Republic. So whatever she was doing in the books is, books, and now she's here.
I'm interested to know her age, because Qimir said that I was time ago, and she's like, well, I've never heard of you, and he said it was a long, long time ago. So it's like, okay, is this guy older than he appears? Is he just saying a long, long time ago because it's like, I don't know, more than 20 years or something? I don't know how old he is, but he had to have been older than, he had to have been there before 15 years, I'd assume.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to Wikipedia. Let's see.
But along those lines, like, I do think that the Venestra stuff is still tough with what's his name, Padawan Mog or Jedi Mog.
Yeah.
He did seem like us for a while. He feels like he's like, what is going on? Like, just, even when he
has a Padawan rat tail.
Yeah, so, Venestra's like talking about, oh, we got to do this, and then he's looking at the other people. He's like, I don't know. He's like, just go.
Yeah, I guess I'll just go.
He's pretty perceptive too.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to jump to the part where they're in the jungle. Oh, and the whole time when they're like doing this jungle excursion, I was like yelling. I'm like, why? Like, why?
I mean, trying to find out what happened, I guess, you know.
But I'm saying, like, for the show to show us another character who's gonna just go into the jungle for no reason.
That did annoy me.
Yeah, and then it felt like they ADR'd. Oh, we'll make sure we take the bodies into burial. Like, if you listen to it again, they added that line.
And that's something I asked about our last review. But I remember when...
Oh, super jarring, showing Jackie and Yor just, like...
I know, just
boom!
Eyes open.
Jeez.
And, like, when we were sitting there watching it, but I'm like, not again. When they're walking into the forest. Because I'm like, we don't need to revisit this again. And thankfully, it wasn't that long of a thing. And you know, she was basically talking to Mog like he's her back computer.
Yeah, she
like,
goes,
what do you see?
What do you think happened? And he goes, it looks like there was an explosion and then a battle. And he goes, do you think Master Soul killed everybody? And I'm like, why does this show keep bringing up the wrong people? Because they did it with May and Osha, right? Like, oh, maybe Osha is the one who's killing people, right? So we've had this, I don't even know what to call it, this story hook already, and it barely worked the first time, and it was already stomped out, and we're doing it again. And I'm like, the audience knows it's not. So are they setting up that they're gonna, like, Soul's gonna be the one to blame for all of this? And I'm just like, how lame.
Yeah, it does feel like we're running in the same circle over and over and over. Especially when you consider, okay, I know Venestra's probably the only one. I don't know how much she elaborated to them while they were on this space journey to the jungle. But, like, they're there to find May, who they know has killed Jedi Masters, and possibly her master, or whatever. She's killing Jedi Masters. Yeah. I really could be the first thing to be like, oh, wow, May's pretty strong, probably, because she probably killed all these people. Yeah. Given that she's killing Jedi Masters. Yeah. So, I mean, what about Soul?
But Soul's mentioned it to Vernestra that she has a master that he's looking for. And if Vernestra's not being forefront with the group that she's with there, then she's hiding something. So that's what makes me believe, like, okay, now Venestra's the bad guy in this show. Which is an interesting thing as a established character in the High Republic. I wonder if in any of the books, and people, by the time the shows will end, people will look into it, and there'll probably be YouTube videos about it, about like, oh, there was hints of her tipping to the dark side or just being shady or whatever. But I really don't care whatever they're trying to do with her at this point. I'm just like, man.
Can we talk about something though? What about May going to check the engine room, whatever it was, and hidden Pip with that factory reset?
Yeah, so I mean, so Master Soul and May. Well, before that, he does like a grab move and just gives her a big ol' hug.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, have we seen any Jedi hug that hard? I mean, Padme and Anakin for sure, but I've never seen Qui-Gon just grab somebody like that and just give him a big old hug. And I'm like, I don't like Soul, man. He's like way too emotional.
He is. He's all over the place too.
Yeah. And his consistency of his character is as bad as May and Osha's to me at this point.
He's got a lot of skeletons in his closet. I don't know what they are, but they're in there.
Yeah.
And he teased us again like 3 times in this episode. But so, what's Bagel? What's his name?
Basil.
Bagel. Basil, sees May, and he runs over and tries to leg lock her and just lock her up with a soul type hug. And Pip calls back to episode 4, I think, and shoots her with his
ink,
coolant or whatever is ink.
Yeah, and she screams, rightfully so. But why would Basil? Basil is supposedly an intelligent creature. He's not like a dog. He's not like a cat. He's like he's a species, right? Why wouldn't you just go tell the Jedi master in the ship, hey, this is a murderer, because he's informed.
Basil is an interesting cat. I'll say that. He's an interesting cat. Because when he went to plug Pip in early in the episode, I'm like, oh, Basil's smarter than I thought. But I know it's a basic thing. Like most toddlers can plug in an iPad. I get that.
Sure.
Obviously, he was able to communicate with Yord, or Yord could at least speak his language or understand his language. So I don't quite know what to make of Basil's intelligence level. He's skilled. He's very skilled in certain areas for sure.
Yeah.
He's got a mean yell. I know that. I don't know why he wouldn't go to Seoul. But he's. Hey, you know what? He also doesn't seem that great under pressure. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe he just folded.
I was hoping to see his neck get cracked in that room, because apparently his species, they're actually highly intelligent, and they're like used for technology and engineering or science or something like that. But this one is the outlier. Basil is the outlier. He's a tracker.
He's got a good nose.
Yeah, he has a good nose, and is not telling. Well, eventually tells Soul about May, because the lights go out, and they have a conversation, and he's like, Soul's just pouring his little heart out about how sad he is, and he needs to, he's like, well, how come I couldn't sense this evil person?
And he's like, why, I need to bring myself finally in front of the council. And she's like, what did you do? I'm old enough now. And the lights come on. He's like, I can't tell you. I can't tell you.
And then for some reason, May runs to the console.
That was and tries to put out that distress call. Why didn't you do that when you were in the cockpit by yourself?
I don't know. I didn't understand. But I was like, oh, here's this time for her to have her back turn. And he was like, May.
You almost had me. You almost had me.
And what's funny is I don't even think he figured it out, because they show Basil behind him. So I'm like, I feel like Basil was like, hey, yo, she's not. It
was pretty rough.
And I was like, this is such a weird thing.
Rough episode for Soul. I mean, he's talking about why couldn't I sense his true intentions with Qimir when we met him back in episode 2? Why couldn't I do that? While he's standing right in front of May, we also apparently can't sense when she's pulled a knife on him behind his back. She's clearly not Osha. Like, I just feel like it's pretty clear.
She's not acting like Osha either.
Like, I've known some twins in my life, right?
Yeah. And
I feel like, sure, if you just meet them for the first time, it's pretty hard to tell people apart. But they're not the same person.
No.
They look the same, sure, but I feel like if you spend enough time around people, you can kind of tell the way they talk, the way they, there's just different small mannerisms and things.
Right.
And especially that's just, I'm not a Jedi, you know what I mean? Like, you're a very, very attuned Jedi. It was kind of like, that's a suspend disbelief episode, which it's fine, but it was pretty ridiculous going back to the last episode.
Yeah, and I mean, it just feels, and it sucks because, like, I don't want to pick the episodes apart at this level, but because there's nothing else interesting going on, I'm just noticing all these weird things. And if we jump to that, just kind of closing out this storyline, she's locked up, rightfully so, right? Because she's dangerous. But they make Soul feel like evil in this moment, because they're like, hey, we got your signal, stay there. And he jumps into hyperspace. Yeah. And then he's like, May, he goes, if I ever encountered you again, I would love to tell you everything that happened. So he's like thinking about this moment, like he knew she was still alive. And then he goes, we need to go rescue Osha. from your master, right? But for all he knows, the master was killed by the moths, and Osha is with
Where is he going?
Yeah.
Also, like, Venestra's in on this. He talks to her. She sent him on this mission. I'm sure he knows that she's the one that's going to be coming for this distress call. And she talks to him, doesn't she? When she's like, leave your whatever open, and he turns it off.
I don't know if that's necessarily her. I think it says just Jedi. So I think it's supposedly one of the other of the 4 that are going there.
But I'm saying, why even put out the damn distress call if you're just going to up and leave? I get you didn't know May was there, and somehow that changes things, I guess. I don't know how. You're like, hey, let me just tell these other Jedi there's a whole Sith that killed all these guys.
Yeah.
And, you know, he didn't even say it was a Sith. He was just like, there's someone newer coming.
They don't talk about Sith in the High Republic. There's no studies or no notes on them.
Yeah, but like they exist, you know what I mean? Like
I know, but I'm saying like I feel like no one knows what a Sith is in this universe besides Qimir.
He's like, your people might call me Sith. Soul's like, what?
A what?
Like,
what are you?
What? I think he called him a scythe. I don't know what he was.
The other funny part too about the jungle scene is when another Umbra Moth comes out. I'm like, they're just everywhere.
Hey, you know, it's light out there, going crazy.
They're going crazy.
I'm surprised they don't fly at the sun.
Yeah, because they said they're like, oh yeah, there's a colony of Umbra Moths that just hatched, and you know they probably killed all your friends. And yeah, that is what it is.
It is what it is. So I mean, there's also a moment between Osha and Qimir where they talked about them talking about him being a murderer and all that, and he walks out and she walks after him and pulls the lightsaber on him, and he's like, do it. And I'm like, just do it. Obviously she's not gonna do it, but that stuff kills me. It kills me. Like, he murdered everybody.
And it's funny because on second watch, like, the music swells, and I'm like, what is she gonna say? What is she gonna tell us? And she's like, I failed. And I'm like, that's not news, because you've already established that you've left the order for these reasons. You were like,
didn't cut it.
Yeah, you're like, I didn't cut it, and you know, she feels out of tune with the Force, as you know, as we've seen throughout the show. And she's like, I was just like, it felt so flat. It's not a reveal. It's nothing special. And he's like, I lost everything too. And when you lose everything, you're free. And I'm like, okay.
Like, at this point, that's where it really takes not that it was standing on a high point for me, but that's where it really I alluded to it earlier, really dives for me. Because at that point, they just have this like moment where she's got the lightsaber ignited and she's working out her feelings and whatever's going on there, and he's talking about hate and anger and all the Sith feelings.
Yeah.
And they just start to hang out. They're just sitting around, like eating soup. And he's just talking about his helmet, and he's like, I know you just murdered all my friends and Jackie and stuff, but all right. You know what I mean? It's like
we'll hang. We'll be cool.
I don't know.
For plot's sake, they sit. That's what it says. They sit and they talk and they chat. And he's like, oh, this helmet's made out of cortosis. And, you know, it's handy against lightsabers. And he's all like welding it. So it's like, who cares, man? I'm like, who cares at this point?
And it's like, you know, she's looking at the wall and you can see the minerals are built into this mountain or whatever.
A vein.
And he's like, you know, it's I forget the term he uses, but basically, like, it helps you, you know, attune yourself with the Force, blocks everything else out.
Oh, yeah, he was talking about the helmet. Yeah.
And you just try it on. It's like...
And what's funny about that is if you put the helmet on and you're only with the Force, in the episode prior, he tells Soul that he can't read his mind, so the Force can't penetrate it either. Yeah. So I'm like, I think
you mentioned something like that in this episode also.
Yeah.
But it's... So my question also, is he only able to be as powerful as he was because of that helmet? Because maybe.
Maybe.
Because he was very powerful, and that is, I guess, an explanation for that.
Yeah.
And to be fair, once the helmet came off, Soul whooped him.
Yeah. So you might be onto something there.
And, you know, like that light on his back, I mean, that happened with the helmet off. So maybe he's just a guy. When you put the helmet on, he's like, nobody cared who I was until I put on the mask.
Someone said it was really impressive that he did all that fighting with like just so little vision.
But you know what I thought of? I was like, okay, when she put on the helmet, I'm like, man, he can't see. Yeah, they do training where they can't see at all. You know, using the Force, you're so in tune that you can't see. And even you think about those Clone Wars episodes where Anakin's training, or I guess it was Tales of the Jedi, where Anakin's training Ahsoka with the blindfold, and you know, I think there's precedent there. But I think that must be, man, put that helmet on Anakin. Oh man. That's a wrap.
Yeah,
that's a wrap.
Yeah, for sure. It's just so hard for me to care about any of the dialogue. And you know what's interesting is if this was the beginning of the Acolyte, like episode two,
sure,
I might be more invested, but it wasn't. And again in the interview, Leslie Headland said that the Stranger wasn't going to be introduced in this season. They were planning to introduce later. Like, they would have showed the character, but not unmask him. And I was like, that's interesting. But they said he tested so well that they had to rewrite it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, that's interesting. Because right now, he's the only compelling person to watch on screen, in my opinion, just because I know the least about him, I think. But
yeah. I mean, there's also one other thing I wanted to allude to. He did mention, you know, I think Osha asked him what he wants, or something along those lines, and it led to him saying, I want the power of 2. Yeah. Like, oh, you're basically saying it, right?
He's saying he's a Sith. And in outside interviews, they've said as much as he's Sith. It's not even...
I mean, he's said it outright.
Yeah.
I know that, and I don't have the answer for this. I know people question with the yellow or gold eyes, right? Obviously, not all Sith have had those. Dooku didn't have them.
Right.
You know, Anakin did, of course, when he turned. But I don't know. I don't find him very. He was menacing with the mask, and once that mask came off, that kind of went away for me. Like it kind of takes that. It's almost like, you know, with Michael Myers. Anytime they've unmasked him, they've never showed his face, because I don't think you don't want to give us that.
Yeah.
I know this is obviously very different, but the monster isn't so scary when you take the mask off, and ironically, when the mask is off, they beat him up pretty easily.
Yeah.
Although he did snap Yord's neck, so
he did.
Darn, Yord.
Yeah.
That's shame on you.
I screenshotted a comment on another YouTube video that said I'll credit Writing Grief. He said, this episode would have been great for me if we understood the emotional motivation of the twins. We get some release of repressed emotion about failure and about being discarded for that failure. But because we do not get to experience Osha's failure at any point, I cannot relate. And I'm like, yeah, it's just like these characters, like May and Osha really don't fit this show, in my opinion. You could put any of the other characters that they showed in these shoes and question Soul's morality, his motivation, and then have someone else be there with Qimir or the Stranger, or however you want to call it, and have these questions of dark side and light side. But it's like Osha has never been a prop in this game besides getting to May. And he's like, everybody wants you, right? He tells her that in this episode. Like, you're valuable, but I'm like, I don't see any value. She hasn't done really anything. And the point where she could have been valuable to them to get May, she was ready to leave. So I can't, it's so hard to relate to Osha at all. And even the sibling relationship that they don't even have. So I'm like, they don't even care about each other. It's so weird. The show is like really poorly written, and I hate to mention it so many times throughout these reviews, and I don't foresee it getting any better anytime soon. Maybe we get a cool fight scene, but I don't know.
How many episodes do we have left?
Two more. Please. Crack my neck at this point.
You know, I'm not to give anything away for something else, but I just finished watching The Bear Season 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's, oddly, as we're talking about this episode, it made me think of an episode in that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some similar moments oddly between people who have a past together.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to like, I don't know what I would tell you, they talk it out. They have that conversation, and they you know what I mean. You have that conversation. You break those bridges, and I'm like, okay, you have these characters come together, i.e. Soul and May, and you actually have them talk it out instead of like, I don't know what I would tell you, or I'm gonna tell you everything. Lights, come on, cut it. It's like you're just teasing us constantly, but we're 6 episodes in, and the tease isn't working. It's all falling flat. So I don't know. I've said before, like, this just feels like a story that, and I know episode 8 parallels, this whole story feels like Rian Johnson was made for it. I'm not saying like, oh, Rian Johnson should have made it and it would have been great. It just feels like a Nightmare Knives Out. It's not working.
Yeah, there's like no substance here.
Yeah.
To like, I'm grasping at something to enjoy, especially in this episode. Like last episode, I'm like, okay, the fight scenes, you know, that definitely scratches an itch. I think for most people it did, and it just doesn't. It's not working, and maybe it would work better if you dropped all the episodes at once and just binged through it all, or if it feels like, hey, Leslie Held didn't want to write a 2-hour movie, and then Disney's like, we need 8 episodes, and it's like, okay, and they're just kind of giving us filler, because we're gonna get a flashback episode. I'm assuming it's going to be episode 7.
It's next episode.
And then you close out 8 as the climax and the epilogue of who survives this, and possibly season 2. No, I'm just kidding. They talked about doing it like season 2 through 4 at some point, which is crazy. But the show is not going to get that far.
I agree that I think that a lot of times the argument is different. A lot of times you have a movie and people are like, this probably would have worked better as a series.
Yeah.
If you know, but I do agree that this story probably could have been completely realized in 2 hours more effectively.
Yeah, I think so.
It also feels like, you're right, sort of filler-ish in a way that some of these episodes feel like, especially 4 and 5, feel like they could have been one episode. 1 and 2 honestly could have been one episode. Yeah. And it does feel like they're being like, it feels like you have one script and you're splitting into 2. Mm-hmm. But even so, even with that, episodes like this one we just got feel like they're just pandering around the same mysteries that they've set up without actually pushing anything forward, which it's a 38-minute episode, and we really didn't accomplish a thing at all. We didn't find out anything about the characters that we didn't already know, and that you know, that's pretty upsetting, but it is what I expected. So I wasn't that disappointed because I was like, I know what's gonna happen. Yeah. We're gonna yap for 38 minutes.
Yeah, and I do want a Qimir backstory. Like, you introduce a character, and why does he have to be mysterious? Why does he have to talk in circles? And then this is the moment where Soul could have given us a backstory. Like, if I was gonna do a 2-hour movie or 2-episode, you know, thing of the Acolyte, I just show the fight scene. Like, we'll do one of those, like, re-edit the Acolyte like they do with all the other Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
You show the fight scene with Carrie-Anne Moss. She dies. You jump to our heroes of like, okay, well, how did this happen? And you don't even mention May at all. Like, you can even cover her up more head to toe, even be Stranger-esque. All the lights turn out. It's a red saber versus a green one. You show Torben get murdered. You know, there's no mention of a Qimir in a alchemist building. You skip all that. You jump to Kofar. Kalnaka's dead, and then you just keep it moving. It's like all this extra dialogue that it's leading us nowhere. And by the time we get to the end of episode 8, we're gonna be like, why did we go on this whole like circle of a journey? And it's like, oh, it's Vernestra. You know, it's Soul's a bad person, and Osha is mad or dead, or May's, you know, good and now dead. I don't know. But it's just like,
yeah,
it's so hard to care, and it sucks as a Star Wars fan. I love Star Wars and I like the universe that they're building, but this story is just not it. And I wish it wasn't such a waste of time.
I also feel like I think both of us in a lot of ways always try and find a silver lining. You know, the good within the bad if you don't like something.
Yeah.
I don't like to just hate on anything, right?
For sure.
But this episode in particular was a little tough to find things to latch onto. One thing I forgot to mention, they keep using Kylo's theme, and
did they use it again in this episode?
They used it again. I don't know if I caught it in the episode, but I was on my phone during the credits, and it played during the credits, and I was like, oh, there it is. It was very brief, not the whole thing, just dun, 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 and then it moved on. And I believe I saw somewhere, and I need to fact check this. I'm usually better with it, but that it was intentional. Like, it's obviously intentional. It's in there. I don't know if this is a Knight of Ren connection. That seems like the most obvious thing. Like, what else would it be? What else could it be connected to Kylo? Like, there's no other connection.
He's like, I want a pupil. Well, I guess I'll just start a clan of pupils.
And I need to go back to the visual dictionaries and stuff. I think there's a mention of them, and not that they care, but of how old like, I feel like it's a lot older than 140 years.
Oh, gotcha.
Like, I could be totally wrong on that. Plus,
they've been changing.
Rewrite that, and I don't care.
Yeah,
like, that stuff doesn't bother me too much.
I mean, and even if it was, if they go like, oh, this is the first Ren, right? Because Ren's the title. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, then tell me that story. Why did we have to jump through all these hoops? And then, like, why would he have to be Sith? Or claim that he was Sith? And
yeah, I mean, it's something where, like, I've talked about how I hope they make an animated series one day or something between episodes 8 and 9, just explaining more stuff. I know they hyped up the Knights of Ren a bunch. They did. Even first appearance in episode 7.
Yeah.
That promise was never realized. All they did was arrest Chewbacca.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, maybe they're going to give us something here. We got 2 episodes. They're not giving us anything revelatory for the Knights of Ren. So that's kind of disappointing. But I'm sure there will be some Knights of Ren mention or something because they keep using his theme.
Yeah.
And something I wish they did more of is, like, John Williams made brilliant themes for all these movies, and I do wish they incorporated them more, which is odd that they don't, because they are all-time themes. I feel like it doesn't matter who like, I don't know that I've ever met anyone who didn't like this, like, the music of Star Wars. I think that's a pretty agreed on thing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, even I defend the sequels all the time, and a lot of times I'll hear people like, oh, I don't like them, but, like, the Rey theme is awesome, or the Kylo theme is awesome. And I'm like, you guys have all this stuff to work with, so that's nice if they're using it in some way. Whether the story is going to pay off for it, I don't know. But
I don't think so.
That's one positive I'll leash on to. Using a little bit of a score from
I mean, they like, Plagueis could walk into this cave, and I'm just like, oh, hey, he's here. And I'm like, what a letdown, what a waste.
It's gonna be a post-credit scene. Like, I don't know if you I'm sorry if you haven't seen The Kingsman. I'm going to spoil something.
Oh, okay.
But there's a post-credit scene, and a historical figure walks in, and I remember watching it, and I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. And it's going to be like, credits roll, boom, post-credit scene, and it's like, I'm here, Darth Plit. And it's just like,
he's so wise. My master was so wise. I don't know, because I mean, I would assume that Vanessa's going to get into the mix somehow, but then, like, how does everyone know where to go?
That's the question. We only have 2 episodes, so we have to have, and one's going to be a flashback at least partially.
Yeah.
So they got a lot to cover in 2 episodes. They have a lot to cover.
2 30-minute episodes? You think it's long?
I think it's got to be
a 30 and a 45.
38 on the low point. I feel like it has to be. But I mean, I could be wrong, because the big action episode was 34 minutes, 26 minutes, something like that. Is really short if you cut out the credits, and so maybe not. Maybe not.
Okay, I want to have some fun. Over under is Mother Anastasia alive?
Over under. Give me a percentage.
Ooh, I mean, I'm just talking 50s. 50%. I guess since we've seen her body, I'll say 30%. She's dead, really dead, or 70. She's alive. What do you take? You taking it?
See, I'm just gonna say I'm finding a loophole here. She didn't die. She wasn't dead when we saw her. but maybe she's died since. That's what I'll say.
Mother Coral.
I think she's alive.
And do you think she's in the show still?
I do. I do. If I had to put $20 on it, I'd say she's probably the big bad. They're throwing us off the scent.
I mean, we could also see Soul just like wreck her and like kick her and, just like toss her into.
Like, with that line where they talk when Osha was talking to Yord in episode 5 about, my mother could do that. Yeah. I feel like that's like, oh, it's the mom. Yeah. And then actually it's not. But it's someone who could also do those things. Yeah. Which is Mother. I forgot her name.
Anastasia?
Coral, yes. Yeah. Coral. And like it's like, oh, Mother Anastasia could do that, and like, oh, it's Anastasia, and they're like, nope, it's the other one.
Do you think we get a Qimir backstory? Like, do you think?
I think so.
Do you think he's tied to the witches?
I was thinking, like, what if he was a kid in that village or whatever?
They said there was no kids though.
There were no kids, huh?
They were the only two.
I mean, he said he was a Jedi. He said he was. It's so tricky. Maybe he knows Venestra.
My guess is, I would say, if we're gonna have fun with it, Coral's alive. She goes, she goes to Plagueis or something. Someone impregnates her again, and but he seems older though. So I don't.
He's older like he's older.
Yeah, older than May and Osha. So maybe that wouldn't work. Or maybe they had a boy and then they got rid of him, and they left him. They left a baby basket on the temple steps, on the Coruscant steps.
Maybe he was already taken, and that's why they're so against the Jedi. I don't know. They were.
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna ask another over under. I didn't mean to cut you off.
You got it. Go ahead.
Over under. 25-75. Do you think Qimir has met Soul prior already?
I really hope not. I really, really hope not. So I'm going to say no. But because I said no, it's probably going to be yes. Just because, I mean, you've seen him face to face multiple times. You talked to him. You've fought him. And like now this goes back to, there's an article, I think by Nerdist. It was talking about episode 5 and like, oh, Qimir obviously was a youngling with Yord because he said, oh, it's you. Well, he's talking about episode 2. But now they're opening up the door to have it be like, oh, actually, he was around. And that's ridiculous.
They show a scene where Vernestra's like, Master Soul, meet my youngling, Plagueis. And Master Soul's like, Venestra, Plagueis, it's so nice to meet you.
This is Clive Plagueis.
Like, he loves baths. He loves taking baths.
I'm Clive Plagueis, but you can just call me Plagueis. And like, okay, that's cool. That's cool. Cool name.
I'm trying to think if there's any other.
That's why he left Coruscant. They didn't have any like tide pools, and so he's like, "No, I can't do this." It drove him mad.
Yeah, I like the jungle. I like the jungle better. Even the whatever they do on Brendok, it's still going to be underwhelming. It feels like it's going to be some dumb reason where. Oh, okay, here's another over under. Soul wanted to actually take May, not Osha.
I'm gonna say under. I don't think so.
He still wants. He wanted Osha from.
I think he. Maybe he purposely left her. Maybe he could have saved her, and although that goes back on some of the things, but that's not. I'm not holding them to anything at this point.
Does Qimir meet May that early? Like, is he at the tree? Like,
protect you? I don't think so.
Okay.
Like that's too early.
Do you think if Mother Coral's still alive, do you think her and May, there's maybe like Coral's like, May, we gotta go somewhere else or something?
I have no idea. They got 2 episodes to show me, but I have no clue.
Like, we're going back for sure. Like that was in the trailer, but here's another one.
Yeah.
Does Soul have misinterpreted guilt? So he thinks he did something bad, but he actually didn't do anything bad, and he's.
I've thought about that. Like, Soul, you dummy! That wasn't you.
Yeah.
Not your fault. I think there's a chance that happens, but if I had to bet, no, I think he did do.
He actually did do something.
He did something. It would be one thing though if maybe they took him over and they controlled him and something happened, so it's like he has blood on his hands, but it wasn't under his own volition, right?
Yeah.
I think that's one option because he's carrying this guilt, but he's like, maybe you couldn't have done anything, but it was out of your control.
Here's another one. That being said, do you think he actually taps into the dark side, like obviously taps into the dark side, like shoots like a lightning?
I'm gonna say no.
Oh, that would be interesting if he shot lightning and that's what caused the explosion or the fire or whatever.
That would be interesting. I hope not, but you never know.
You never know.
We've seen it happen, episode 9, right?
Yeah, there's a callback to the sequels.
I mean, it could happen. I think the missing key to all of this is Master Kelnaka. We didn't get to hear his side of the story.
It's all from Kelnaka's perspective.
Yeah, it's like you can see like the fur around the camera, like it's just his point of view.
He's like fixing the speeder bike, and he's like, "Where'd I put that gas can?" Of like a coaxium. Like, what do I?
He plugged in an extension cord over there and it's loose, and you realize he's tugging on it. Cause a spark. Like,
anything else you want to say about this episode or episode 6? Teach/corrupt/ clean bath time /
Here's what I'll say.
Power outage.
I'm gonna give my rating. I'm gonna give my rating for
do
this episode, and I'm gonna give it a solid 3. I'm gonna give it a 3. I almost went lower, but I predicted it would be a 3. It felt like a 3 as I watched it. Dialogue heavy, not the show's strength.
Yeah.
Didn't really take us anywhere.
No.
We actually went back, if anything. We went back to the forest. We went back and relived the same things. We didn't push anything forward. So I'm giving it a 3. What I will say is I do think next episode is going to be another 5. I think it's going to be a 5 because I think there's going to be action. I think there's going to be tension. I think we're going to finally get a couple of answers. I'll be happy with one. One answer is all I need.
Just one?
Just give me something. Give me something. I've been chewing on. It's like you eat a corn dog and you're down to the stick, and they're just hungry? Like, hey, just like, you hungry again? They just give you the same stick. I'm like, all right. And then it's like later in the afternoon, like, you hungry? I'm like, yeah, same stick. And I'm like, I've chewed on this thing 3 times today. So that's what I got. What about you?
I think I'm there with you at a 3. I'm trying to even think where the 3 points would come in, but I'm like, it's still shot well. I like the setting. They at least say cortosis there. I don't like the double fake out ending though. It's like they did. I know. I was like, we're on a black screen, and then it jumps to. It felt like an end credit scene of showing May. And did it look kind of ridiculous with her in the helmet and just kind of like sitting there breathing? I thought that was kind of a funny shot.
A bit. I was like, man, this is what I feel like when I put on like that Poe Dameron helmet.
Yeah, I'm wondering too if we're gonna see Soul tell the story, and then while she's in the helmet, her relive the perspective of someone else who was there, because I don't think Qimir was there to tell her or expose what happened on Brendok. So I have a feeling the Force will tell her what happened on Brendok. I think that's how it'll be revealed to her.
That would be interesting.
Sure, so, I guess. I mean, I feel like that's the way they're going to go.
That wouldn't be that interesting because you're right. Why didn't one of the million characters who apparently know just tell her? And by the million characters, I mean Soul.
Yeah.
But, or Qimir, I guess, if he knows. Or May, who's like, oh, they didn't tell you everything. Okay, tell me.
Yeah.
No. Like, and Soul's like, I'm going to tell you everything. Tell me everything. Lights are on, sorry.
Yeah. And I actually really miss the crew. I really miss Jecki here. I miss Yord here, because those were kind of like the bright spots of the show, in my opinion, where it's like we have other characters to kind of bounce off of who are actual like good Jedi, decent enough Jedi who I felt were capable, instead of Soul just all up in his feelings at this point. It's very awkward and weird.
We mentioned this last week too. I was like, I'm nervous for these last couple episodes because we've lost some of the more interesting characters, if you will. They're utilized less than Soul and May and Osha, but they're there to interject some life into it. Never did I think I would be longing for Yord content, but here we are. You're right. I think it's lost a bit of its soul, whatever soul there was there. Soul.
Yeah.
Fun.
Well, that being said, I want to, if you got this far into the episode, thank you for hanging out with us. I want to do a giveaway for a Rancor shirt. So, one thing I was thinking of is comment what you think is going to happen in this episode. And I'm going to pick from the comments of this episode first to give one of the commenters a shirt of their choice on rancorclothing.com. Should we do like a funny hashtag or?
I think that's a great idea. I think maybe
thirst trap.
You do thirst trap. You can do a hashtag. You could do thirst trap. I don't know. Rancor.
Or bath time.
Also, you're probably going to get this video out before the video I'm going to post, but I will just say that we recorded a video. I had some computer issues, so it didn't get put out as soon as I wanted it to be. But we're doing a ranking fantasy draft of a lot of the Star Wars properties, movies, TV shows, animation, and we had a ton of fun. And I'll probably do a giveaway also on same kind of giveaway.
Yeah.
So tune into that video if you want a Rancor shirt, and we have a question in there, so you really just have to answer it also in the comments, and also pick one out. So you got opportunity for 2 shirts.
Yeah, there we go. I love it. Yeah. So comment below. Either do hashtag thirst trap or hashtag bath time, and I'll pick a winner.
I like that one.
Before the next episode, we'll say it. We'll close it off before the next one posts. So before episode, what is it? Episode 7. So before Tuesday at 6 p.m., I'll check and see who's put hashtags in, and I'll do a random giveaway, and someone can have a cool Rancor shirt, a bright spot within the darkness of how terrible this Acolyte show has been. And if you guys are loving it, so happy for you. Keep enjoying it. Keep tuning in. Check the description below for our Instagrams. Give us a follow, like, comment, and subscribe. That's all that's being said here. I hope you have a galactic rest of your day. Punch it, Chewie. Boom. Bye, guys. See you next week.